This is the story of the day the world almost ended. On September 26, 1983, at 1:23 a.m., an unknown Soviet military radar system detected a missile launch. It was coming from the direction of the United States and was heading straight for the USSR. At first they thought it might be a false alarm, but when the number of missiles increased to 270 and then 340, it became clear this was no drill. The Soviets were under attack. As the minutes ticked by, more and more missiles filled Soviet screens. By 1:27 a.m. there were 460 of them. Moscow sent an urgent message to Washington. "Your missiles are coming." They demanded the United States explain what was happening. In reality, those missiles didn't exist. There was no attack. It was all a massive false alarm. And today, we still don't know why. In the US, the Air Force's Aerospace Defense Command was also tracking these fake missiles. At first, their computers showed 260 of them. Then the number jumped to 320, and within minutes, that grew to 460. Some of the missiles were showing up over Siberia. Others were headed toward the North Pole. Still others appeared to be coming from the general direction of Alaska. This didn't make any sense. The US and the USSR had never simultaneously launched that many ballistic missiles before, nor had they ever attacked each other with them. Meanwhile, on the other side of the world, in Norway, a team of scientists at the Institute for Nuclear Research was busy collecting data for a research project. They had no idea that they were about to witness a major international incident. As they gathered around watching the real-time data scrolling across the screen, they saw something incredible. Their instruments indicated that a large explosion had just occurred near the North Pole. Could this be it? Was this the nuclear apocalypse? Soviet and American nuclear forces were on high alert during the Cold War, and this wasn't the first time that systems had mistakenly reported a nuclear attack. In 1960, for instance, the U.S. Air Defense Command briefly went on alert after radar operators in California mistook a flock of Canada geese for Soviet bombers, and in 1962, American radar operators tracked a Soviet submarine traveling through the Bering Strait. They reported their findings to Washington, D.C., which then sounded the alarm throughout the U.S. But it turned out that the sub had been traveling due south, away from the American mainland. Aboard that sub was Vasily Arkhipov, one of only 3 men who knew the launch codes for the Soviet nuclear arsenal. If he'd ordered a strike, then the world would have ended. But in 1983, things were different. The stakes were higher. Systems had improved, and neither side wanted to make a mistake. Still, when Moscow received word of the approaching missiles, they weren't convinced. Lieutenant Colonel Nikolai Sakov, the duty warning officer, tried to contact Washington, but the call went unanswered. He tried again, and still no reply. He waited another 10 minutes and then gave the order to strike back. "Launch all our missiles," he said. "We are under massive attack." In less than a minute, 454 Soviet nuclear missiles streaked skyward from their silos in European Russia. At 1:35 a.m. they exploded over the North Pole, releasing a blinding flash of light and a fireball of nuclear fire. But the attack never happened because there was no attack. Those missiles filled the skies above Siberia and northern Canada, but they didn't contain nuclear warheads. These were decoys designed to confuse enemy radar systems. They were part of a training exercise called Able Archer 83, and that's why the world almost ended. A computer glitch caused the Soviet early warning system to track non-existent missiles from the United States. Meanwhile, America's computers identified these fake missiles as decoys and didn't realize that the real targets were elsewhere. For 5 terrifying minutes, both sides prepared to strike each other with every weapon at their disposal. It was the closest the world ever came to nuclear war. Today, the question remains, whose mistake was this, and how did they manage to avoid a global catastrophe? Some believe the Soviets may have misinterpreted signals from the US, while others say the US never sent the signals in the first place. Some think the Soviets may have miscalculated the trajectory of the fake missiles, but no one knows for sure. What we do know is that if even one thing had gone differently that night, the world as we know it might not exist.